views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and the man seated near me this week is secretly controlled by a small alien in his belly. His name is Mike Roth.
It hurts so bad.
Yeah?
Yeah. It happened. I was with my team. We're searching this new area. I found this pod. And I was like, hey, cool pod. Looked at it. Something sucked onto my face. This happened just a couple of days ago.
Wow.
I'm not feeling too good.
Wow.
So if anything happens.
I was hoping you didn't eat the pod like you're doing the Tide Pod challenge with alien pods.
No. I like my aliens putting their eggs right
Nice.
inside. Yeah.
Classic.
It is. It really is classic. One of these days when you're announcing yourself, since we're not on, I'm going to just scream, and I'm Mike Roth!
I can't wait. It's going to be so exciting. Mike, this week we got a couple of movies, and we are also continuing our Center Stage series with Steve Martin film. But first, what do we have to talk about? A film that we got to see. What do we have?
Yeah, Irresistible. It's streaming right now. Directed and written by Jon Stewart, which I'm sure you know.
From The Daily Show.
The Daily Show. He's a very popular guy.
Yes, he is.
And also Death to Smoochie, one of his better,
one of his
great films.
Yeah.
Steve Carell. He plays Gary Zimmer. He is a very successful a Democratic Party campaign consultant. He's feeling a little depressed after 2016 elections, and he finds out that some of these states are now swing states that they never expected before, and he wants to start kind of at the low bar and get the rural vote to be more,
going.
Get some grassroots going, start in a rural town, and try to swing it so they could start believing more democratic type beliefs, which he believes they all believe anyways. It's just they need to get rid of that Democrat-Republican thing and just go by principles that you believe.
Mm-hmm.
He sees this little video of Jack Hastings, played by Chris Cooper, just telling the mayor and the body, what we have to do to save our own people, not just throw them away, but we need to come together. And it was so inspiring of a speech that Steve Carell, Gary Zimmer, he decides to go out to the small town in Wisconsin. It's a fictional town.
Deer Lake in Wisconsin.
Deer Lake in Wisconsin. It sounds exactly as it's spelled. And it's and start the campaign there against the Republican mayor, played by Brent Sexton. It kind of starts a thing where, this small town used to have 15,000, now 5,000. Not a lot of money to run a campaign, so the Democratic Party starts to put a little money into it in order to help get Jack Hastings the election. This attracts one of his nemesis from the Republican Party who has the exact same job, so she comes in, gives Jack Hastings the Republican moniker, and then pushes more money into the whole campaign in order to get the Republican to win in this town.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, there's a lot of jokes of the DC insider being in a rural town, kind of fish out of the water.
Yeah.
He's really excited about things, but a lot of things are kind of icky, and he just doesn't quite connect because he's doing what he perceives a small town should do instead of actually getting to know the people, which that it kind of becomes a theme in this movie.
Right.
Millions get spent. This becomes pretty evident right away. And because of this also has an interesting little twist that has moral that, we could look back at today. Now, overall, did it really hit it out of the park? When it got down to the end, I was like, this was a little bit too much. I enjoyed the journey there, but it really didn't make good movie.
Yeah, that was kind of my issue with it. Like, it felt like it was toothless to me.
Yeah.
And I was expecting more out of Jon Stewart, who was a really savvy political guy. And, you know, I like Chris Cooper in this role. He plays the crusty old vet who you'd expect him to be different. And you know, you have the fish out of water scenario, but ultimately this movie is really about people taking advantage of each other, and using appearances and fake veneers to kind of get what they want, get what they need, right? That's the whole movie is all about that. And I think Steve Carell's really charming in this movie, and he's perfect. He's the perfect guy for this.
Yeah.
It's when Rose Byrne shows up as Faith Brewster, his Republican nemesis. And they've gone to battle for years, right? And she's still hanging the victory of 2016 over his head. That just kind of derailed a lot for me because it felt like they just kept going to the same well over and over with her.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then we start bringing in the big Democratic donors and all this, and we realize that all these people are just chameleons. They're just trying to, Rose Byrne, they're just trying to be what the people that they're talking to want them to be. And you see how fake everyone involved in politics is, and that's not a big surprise, right?
Including Steve Carell himself.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, all of them are. And just how they're using Chris Cooper's character, Jack Hastings, and like the whole dog and pony show and take him to the millionaires, like, hey, give this guy a bunch of money, you know, he's our new golden boy because I saw him on a viral video. And I did like how the locals felt genuine to me.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't just dumb, slack-jawed yokels.
No.
They were just regular people who could see through a lot of this.
And even then, you find out at the end, they aren't really who they are supposed to be.
Exactly.
And that brought down the movie for me a little bit. I get the message, and I enjoy the message. We put way too much money into political campaigns when it should be going to people who's really in need. And I think that was the message this movie was trying to go for. It's like, why are we spending hundreds of millions of campaign? This campaign ended up costing like $40 million, something like that, when we could take that money and actually put it to good use.
Do some good,
And I thought that message was good, but it ended up being a little bit too much at the end, and there was no good guys.
I predicted it. My wife and I were watching, and like a half hour in, I told her what the kind of twist was going to be at the end. I was like, oh, I can see this coming. And sure enough, and I was like, it just felt, like I said, it just kind of felt toothless and tame. Like, I think the cast was fun enough. I think Chris Cooper's really good. Steve Carell's really good. Mackenzie Davis I really like as Chris Cooper's daughter. I always like her in things. But, I mean, it's a tame look at, you know, the world of big politics and everything that goes on in it. And I don't know. It kind of got hacky in points where, I don't know. I was expecting, look, The Big Short, this is not. Like,
no.
You know, this is not the breakdown of how things really go down. But
I'm thinking Jon Stewart took this direction to try to make it an easy pill for everybody. If he watered it down, made it funny, put in a couple of stars, people will watch this instead of being something really politically powerful and gets awards, but not a lot of people watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you give Irresistible?
I gave it 3. I thought it was fun enough. I did like the message. I just thought the ending was a little too much.
Yeah. I gave it 2.5 stars. I was just kind of there for it. I liked some performances. I wasn't in love with the script, though. There was parts of it that I just could have done without. But moving on, sir, we have another film for us on Netflix. We had a film called The Devil All the Time from director Antonio Campos. This has got a big all-star cast. Stars, well, a bunch of people, but it's this big sprawling drama, heavy on the drama, taking place during a stretch from World War II into the 1960s in a small Ohio town of Knockemstiff. And boy, is that a proper name for this town, everything that happens. I mean, just the visuals. You don't even know what's going on. Look at these visuals, are insane. And there's a lot of storylines going on here and a lot of characters with a lot of motives. Most of them are nefarious motives.
Yeah.
But it really is a story. It opens, Bill Skarsgard is a man named Willard Russell. He comes home from World War II with severe PTSD. He saw some serious things in the war, and it has affected him in a big time. He marries his high school sweetheart, Haley Bennett, who plays Charlotte Russell. Together they have their young family and a young boy named Arvin. and immediately things start going bad.
Well, things weren't good before that.
Well, things are never good at Knock 'em Stiff. That's the thing, is things are never good. But kind of early on, we find out that his wife has cancer. And Willard is trying to be the good man. He's trying to teach his son, but he can't escape his demons, and his demons continue on. And he teaches Arvin lessons in kind of dealing with pain and how you try to be good, but sometimes, especially if someone messes with your family, you got to bring them pain. And he teaches his son an important lesson that the narrator says, like, I remember this day more than any day of my life when I watched my dad just pummel somebody.
Yeah.
He teaches him the power of prayer at this prayer log in front of a homemade cross, and this prayer log becomes a very sticky point in their relationship.
Yeah.
He teaches him sacrifice.
Yeah,
it's
but that was
kind
out of desperation. Yeah.
Disturbing moment, but kind of this whole world of Knock 'em Stiff is filled with leeches and parasites as far as people go. You have a local preacher who's very duplicitous, played by Henry Milling. He's not a great guy. This movie is filled with people. So it cut to years later. Arvin has grown up, and now he's played by Tom Holland. You also have the sheriff, played by Sebastian Stan, who unwittingly his sister and her husband, played by Riley Keough and Jason Clarke, are a team of serial killers traveling around the country.
There's so many stories
and
it spans 2 generations. This is an epic-like film.
There's
very hard.
multiple terrible preachers in here, because Henry Melling's preacher is awful, and then Robert Pattinson shows up into town.
Henry Melling's, he did awful things, but he did it for reasons that he thought was good. And that's one of the things I enjoyed about this movie, is there is a lot of concepts about evil and religion and all sorts of things that go on in normal people's lives. There are people who are strictly down the line evil, but a lot of this is just people confused on what is the right thing to do, including Tom Holland's character, who was a good guy, but he did some really bad things in the end.
And that's kind of one of my questions about this movie is, the title, Devil All the Time.
Yeah.
What do you think that means? Do you think it means that he was the devil all the time? That the devil's always there working on these people? Like, because really he feels like, I want to do the right thing, but really he brings a lot of pain and terror. I mean, there's a lot of people die in this movie in very horrific deaths, and there's...
To me, I think the only people who were really the devil all the time is the obvious side story of the serial killers, Sandy and Carl Henderson.
I think Robert Pattinson was awful. Robert Pattinson was raping young girls.
True, yeah.
He was using the pulpit to gain access to teenage girls.
No, he was he was also terrible.
He was awful.
But he was more of the end of the film thing. So I really didn't, because again, 2 generations and a lot of stories. When we got to that story, it was at the, last third?
That's about halfway through he shows up because he embarrasses Arlen's family. His mom embarrasses them, humiliates them about her food and their plate.
Well, Tom Holland didn't even really come in until halfway into the story.
It's about halfway in, yeah. It's a fairly split movie. It's a 2-hour and 15-minute movie. It's fairly well split in the middle.
It kind of reminds me a lot of East of Eden, the book.
Sure.
Where it spans many generations, but everything kind of ties in. And we don't really concentrate on just one person, but every person is very important to the story.
They are. There's a lot. It swirls around, and I think there's just a lot of brokenness in this story, a lot of broken characters, a lot of desperate characters, people preying on innocence and the less fortunate. There's also, there's a gun that is introduced in the beginning of the movie. A gun that his father tells him was the gun that took Hitler's life. Yeah. And I have it. That's what he's trying to tell his dad when he comes back from the war. I got the gun that Hitler killed himself with. He said, great. And, there's a theory about when you show a gun in the first act of a film or in a play. You show that gun has to go off in the next act. What's the point of showing this gun? This gun goes off many, many times throughout this movie. This gun is used many times through this movie.
Yeah.
It is the gun itself almost is the devil all the time, because this Walther gun, this German gun from World War II that supposedly killed Hitler, dispatches a lot of evil in this movie.
Was that the also gun that was used to kill the soldier, or not kill, but
Yes.
put him out of his?
Yes, we see it
torment?
in the beginning, putting him out of his misery.
Yeah.
And this gun just continues to show up years, decades later. It's still taking people out. It's pretty wild to me. And I don't know, there's just so much story in here, and there's father and son dynamics of passing on things to your son, and maybe not necessarily things you want to pass on.
Yeah.
You can't escape your upbringing sometimes.
No.
You know? And I don't know. I think the big thing is there's a lot of story and a lot of characters in here. And I almost would have preferred if this was like a 4-episode miniseries or something on Netflix,
Okay.
a limited series.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, man, there's so many characters that you could still flesh out more.
I think for my viewing taste, I would have liked if they took out the Sandy and Carl.
And that's the one set of characters that I think could have used more time if this were like a 4 hours, 4 different hours, because I felt like their characters were just kind of dropped in there. And I think that if you used them differently, it would have been more interesting.
Maybe.
They felt like they were kind of from a different movie.
I felt like they were dropped in to bring in sex and violence.
Sure.
And that was it. And it really does spice up the movie. Can't deny that. But at the same time, they felt completely worthless. Like, okay, we need some violence and we need some sexual themes. Let's throw it in this quarter and let's forget about it so that it could wrap up eventually in the end, but it really wasn't necessary.
And it felt like it was there only to make Sebastian Stan's character of the cop come full circle towards the end of the movie because it's his sister. Because otherwise it felt like, I don't know why he's a big part of this.
And that was another thing that maybe a miniseries would have helped out. I really didn't care about that cop's relationship at all. I know he loved his sister. There was like a little scene. There was a scene where he found the photo. Arvin at the prayer log, and then you really don't even think about him again.
Again, that's kind of playing on the same concepts of this movie. Is it's all about family dynamics, and even if I right or wrong, if you do something to my family, like now I have to bring you pain. And that's kind of every character in this movie is they resort to violence because of something happening to their family, and so revenge is on everyone's mind. Yeah. And it's just a vicious circle in Knock 'em Stiff.
Well, unless you're Roy Lafferty, you don't care about family.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I felt like it was a little overstuffed for the time constraints, which is weird to say about a 2-hour and 15-minute movie, but it did feel kind of overstuffed. And I liked a lot of the characters. I thought Tom Holland was really good in this. Yeah. I thought that Bill Skarsgård as his dad was great in this in the first half of the movie. I like Riley Keough. I normally love Robert Pattinson, but he felt a little campy to me for this movie. Like it felt like it was a very serious drama, and he was a little too campy in parts for me. I still love seeing him in movies, but I don't know.
I also wish they fleshed out Lenora Lafferty's story a little bit more. She was super important.
Yep. Yeah, she was kind of the linchpin for everything coming together in this.
But when you think of the movie, she's, again, kind of a side note when I feel like she should have been right up there with Tom Holland on this.
This movie is, it's bleak. Like it is.
It is not a feel-good movie.
It's depressing, yeah.
It is beautifully shot, though.
It looks gorgeous, but it's oppressively bleak in moments where it's like, boy, there's just, how does anyone get away from anything in this film? But
yeah.
I'm curious what you gave Devil All the Time.
I gave 4.
Okay.
I wanted a little bit more of other things, a little bit less of other things. I think you're spot on. It needed to be longer. It needed to be cut up. But what I watched, it was very entertaining. It was a beautiful film to watch. I just needed more and less.
Your review is spot on for me. I feel exactly the same way. I gave it 3.5 stars. Like I enjoyed it. I really like depressing movies. I know this about me, but I did exactly. I wanted more and I wanted less. If they're giving me 2 hours and 15 minutes, then cut some of this stuff out of here. Make what is important more important. But I would have loved to see this as like a little limited series.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
But That didn't happen.
Still good, though. If you like oppressively bleak films, this is a good one for you.
Lately I haven't, but this one I thought was pretty decent.
Not bad. All right, sir, let's move on to our center stage segment where we're talking about a Steve Martin film. What do we have this week?
We have, back in 1983, Carl Reiner directed this film. We're talking about Man with Two Brains. Steve Martin plays Michael
Yeah, don't try that again.
He repeats it over and over again. I'm not going to be able to say it right. And he is, according to him and a lot of other people, world's best neurosurgeon ever.
Yes.
He ends up hitting a woman with his car and had to do emergency brain surgery on her with all his brain surgery skills. And this woman and him get married, but this woman is a gold digger and a psychopath, and she just pretty much tortures the people that she marries until they're dead. And so he takes her on a honeymoon so maybe they could connect because they've been together for like 6 months and no consummation and stuff like that. So he's thinking, we take a vacation where he meets Dr. Alfred Necessor, who is a person who collects brains of people who died a special way.
David Warner's The Mad Scientist is incredible.
And Merv Griffin was awesome.
Yes.
This movie, the plot, you could just put it in a ball and throw it out. It's a lot like Naked Gun. It's not about the plot.
It's a love story.
Well, it is
between
a love
a man
story.
and a brain.
Yes, but for the most part, it's just a wacky scene after wacky scene after wacky scene. And really, there wasn't much like this out there until this came out. We had a Kentucky Fried Movie, which is very, I feel like has a similar feel to it. But otherwise, after this, the movies started getting a little bit wackier.
I feel like this was them trying to find Carl Reiner again, working with him, worked with him on The Jerk, just trying to find something to channel Steve Martin's outlandish stuff. This is before he's honed it down. We talked about Roxanne last week, where he kind of really started to hone his craft. This felt like it's like, just be silly, do whatever you want. Kind of plays a similar character, like naive and a goofball, as we saw in The Jerk. It's like if Naven went and got a neurosurgeon degree from somewhere, but still was like naive about life.
Yeah,
and it's an odd film, and I think it's kind of an unnecessarily complicated plot. Like I'm watching this, I hadn't seen this movie in forever, and I'm watching it, I'm going, why are they trying to jam this weird plot into this movie? Yeah,
the title really doesn't even make sense until the end, when Susan. Nope. I got
Sissy
that.
Spacek?
Sissy Spacek, she plays the voice of the brain that Steve Martin falls in love with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say his last name.
No, don't try.
So, and that did not even come up until much later in the movie. And two brains, he never really had. He carried around an extra brain.
Yeah.
He had his own brain.
Yeah.
But not really two brains. The Dr. Alfred Necessor, he said that he could connect a brain where it's like doesn't have to be inside the head. And I kind of thought maybe that was going to happen. I haven't seen this movie since I was a teenager.
It's strange. Like I said, I love David Warner in this. He's great as this mad scientist. I like Paul Benedict. He's great as the butler who's just talking smack. I think it's a transition film for Steve Martin. I think he's fun and he's enjoyable. I think the film is really uneven. Like I was watching it going, I don't know where this is going. I think the writing is just really uneven in this one.
Yeah.
And it's a fun concept, and he almost plays it in parts kind of ghoulish, like as the brain surgeon. Like there's some weird parts of this movie where you're like, oh, this guy's just weird, and I kind of like that side of Steve Martin. And there's another film that we'll be talking about later in the series where he plays ghoulish a little bit in a comedy where I really like that.
But
Kathleen Turner's good in this though too.
Just to explain how weird this film is, when he's doing brain surgery, a cat will be in the surgery.
No worries.
It doesn't make sense. It's there.
It feels like
every time
the cat wandered onto set and they just kept shooting. The cat just shows up.
But then they do it every time he has brain surgery. Cat's gone. All right, sweet.
Why? Don't know.
Don't know. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. The Man with Two Brains. A lesser known Steve Martin movie, I would say.
I watched it on VHS back in my teen years.
Wow. Grandpa, what's
and
VHS?
I never revisited it It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
I'm okay for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. I felt like, yeah, okay, I rewatched this for the first time in 20-some years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good now.
Yep.
I got other things to watch. Let's take a look, sir. What's going to be coming soon the weekend of October 2nd? Buckle your seatbelts, kids. We have on Netflix a film called The Outpost, which is a film about some Army Rangers going out and doing some Army Ranger stuff.
You sound exciting. You really can't look forward. I can't wait for it.
We also have another film on Netflix, a Nigerian drama called Olutur. And there's also a film in the Red Box that's kind of interesting to me called The True History of the Kelly Gang, because it has an interesting cast to it, but things are slowing down even on the streaming services these days.
Well, it is September, and this is expected. Unfortunately.
This is October, man.
Oh.
It's just getting worse.
Oh, no.
But
we're going to do something
we
different.
push on. No worries, no worries. Before we move on, though, I want to thank our sponsor, The Palace, here in Sun Prairie Marcus Theaters, Palace Cinema. Thank you for sponsoring this program. We do appreciate it. We love you guys, and we encourage you to go check out The Palace if you like movies. I don't know.
They do have
They
a
have
lot.
an app. You should go on there. You can see what they're showing and order your tickets and your food ahead of time is what they recommend.
If you like the retro movies, and
They're playing a ton of them right now.
they are, and it's not like the low budget. If you always wanted to see Jaws on the big screen,
40th
that's what they're
anniversary
going
of
for.
Empire Strikes Back is playing right now.
Yeah.
Why not? They got the Wizard of Oz playing this weekend. They got
Yeah.
all kinds of oldies and goodies.
And they do keep it as safe as possible for the people who are concerned.
I don't think Man with Two Brains is going to be playing on that classic series, though.
No, I don't think
Probably not. Probably not. Next week, sir, I have a few films for our viewing pleasure. We have a film on Netflix called We Summon the Darkness. It's a comedic horror film,
Okay.
which I watched like the first 10 minutes of the other night.
All right, sweet.
I have no review on it. Saw 10 minutes. There's also a film called Ava that has interesting to me. It stars Jessica Chastain. I like her a lot.
Okay.
There's a film called Residue on Netflix. These are all films we could be talking about next week. Of course, Enola Holmes, the Sherlock Holmes' sister with Millie Bobby Brown. Mm-hmm. The Secret Society of Second-Born Royals is playing on Disney Plus about the Second-Born Royals who form a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I guess. I don't know.
And when I think of second-born nobles, I think of like the inbred royalty.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe it is.
I don't think
know.
of superheroes.
I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what Disney's doing over there.
We do not know. Disney could be doing anything. They're desperate.
They really could. They've pushed all their movies back, so I know what they're not doing.
Yeah.
Showing movies. And then, of course, next week we return to the center stage to talk about another Steve Martin film. I'm going to give you a little hint. It's a movie where it's got plaid in the title. How about that? How's that for a hint? Did I give it away?
That's a huge hint.
Is it?
Yes.
Narrowed it down for you?
You did.
I'll give you this hint. I've never seen Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, so I'm kind of excited. I don't think I've ever seen it.
I've seen it. I don't remember it. It was around the same time I watched Man with Two Men.
Sure. Well, yeah, you get one, you get the other.
Exactly.
I don't believe I've ever seen it, so I'm kind of excited to sit down and watch it for the first time.
Now, there was a time I was on a huge Steve Martin kick back when I was
When did that end?
Younger. Not much, really.
Was there a movie that was like, this
but it
is
was
it, I'm
like
done?
every week I had to have a Steve Martin film
Nice.
for a few months.
Well, you know what? That time has returned because
It
every
has.
week you're getting a Steve Martin film now, and so are you. Whether you like it or not, we're talking Steve Martin. Anyways, that's what I've got. Hey, find us on our social media. We've been having some fun. I've been chatting with some folks on our Instagram. Real Reviews TV, I believe, is our Instagram.
Nice.
I think so. Also find us on Facebook and, have some chats with us, have some conversations. You can find us on Twitter. You won't find me there. I've discontinued my Twitter. So,
Did you?
Yeah, I just can't take it. It's all hot garbage over there on Twitter. Sorry, Twitter. We just lost their sponsorship. But anyways, find us on our social
Time for
media.
our TikTok.
Yeah, we're going to have to. I don't think that's going to happen either. Anyways. But until next week when we talk about a whole bunch of random movies, I'm Jamison.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.